It began as a hobby. Mary Ellen Sheets hoped her boys could make a few bucks helping people move. Friday night date money, basically. But when it turned into big business, Mary Ellen called on her daughter to grow a franchising company. Two women driving a trucking company called Two Men and a Truck.
They needed spending money. I was a single mom, so they were kind of helping out.
Well, we started with a pickup truck. We started hauling trash and brush from people's yards, and then we started getting calls to move furniture.
We're actually 6'2", but we've lifted so much furniture, we're down to 5'8" now.
Brig and John Sorber were still in high school near East Lansing, Michigan, when they started helping people move in the early 1980s.
We realized, geez, we have friends that are flipping burgers. We have friends that are doing other menial jobs. We kind of like this.
They made a few bucks without answering to a boss, like their mom did as a systems analyst for the state.
I sat in a cubicle for 20 years, and I worked with really nice people. I enjoy them very much, but it's like 20 years of my life, it was gone. When my boys used to move people, they would come home and put a little bit of their money in this dish.
They saved a little money from each job to buy gas and some rudimentary advertising.
I took an ad out in the paper, and the first line was Two Men in a Truck. Hardly two men, hardly a truck. But it worked, and one night I had an answering machine. I came home from work, and I had 12 phone calls of people that wanted the boys to come and move them.
Short distance moves by a local mover, small jobs that weren't practical or big enough for the big guys.
That's all we could do were local moves, because our truck wouldn't go that far. I also have our first logo that I drew.
Mary Ellen scratched out a doodle on a moving order. Who knew it would become an internationally recognized logo?
The lady called me one day and she said, "You were so smart to have a child draw your logo." It was like, well, it was me, and those are my boys.
When her boys moved on to college, Mary Ellen's phone kept ringing. So she hired two men and bought another truck.
I paid $350 for it, and that's all the money I ever invested in this company. We were really busy. The only trouble is the gas gauge didn't work, so every night I had to take it to the gas station and fill it up. We never knew if there was gas in it.
It was just a hobby. Mary Ellen wasn't licensed, and she charged by the hour. Customers liked that because movers typically charge by the pound. Word was getting around.
All we needed were the trucks. They're like billboards going through town. We would say, "How did you hear about us?" And that's always it. We saw your truck.
Mary Ellen quit her full-time job in the late 1980s and focused on her moving company. In 1988, she took part on a small business panel at Michigan State University. It produced a tip that changed her life.
I met this lady, and she had franchised her business. I said, "Well, I can't do it. You know, all I have is two men in a truck." And she said, "Well, all I do is feed dogs, so if I can do it, you can do it." And it turned out we could do it.
The first franchisee? Mary Ellen's own daughter, Melanie. At the time, she was a pharmaceutical sales rep in Atlanta.
I said, "Mom, start a moving business? I mean, do they make any money?" So to appease my mom, I went and started it as a hobby on the side.
Soon, Melanie's hobby was taking up 25 to 30 hours a week. Then she bought a second truck. Another woman in the moving business.
The year after being in business, I was informed that I never got plates for the truck.
By the early 1990s, Two Men in a Truck had 36 franchises in 6 states. Now, each state has its own rules and regulations to adapt to. Turns out that's why no one else in the small load local moving business was franchising.
It is a male-dominated field, but you know what? My mom always said from the beginning, don't focus on the competitor, focus on the customers. So we do have a core value called the grandma rule, and that is to treat everyone as if it were your grandma, and the movers get this one.
In time, Brig and John opened franchises too.
It was grossing $6 million a year. This is when she called me, and she said, "Would you take over as president of the franchise company?"
Melanie became president, but she had no salary and no idea how to run a franchising company.
My first year as president, I sat at a copy machine. That was my desk.
Help came from the state of Michigan. 2 Men in a Truck was creating jobs. So the governor's office awarded a grant, which included a consultant who helped turn Melanie into a franchising guru.
We're just all. One thing he taught me was, Melanie, you're not charging enough. And a lot of women don't charge enough. And we're talking about the royalty. So because we were still broke, we drove to every location, my mom and I, myself, and we explained to them, we have to raise your royalty, but these are the benefits that'll come with it.
This is Stickman University.
A few franchise operators resisted at first, but 2 Men in a Truck used the money to build a support system.
And what we have here is a 26-foot moving van built inside of our building.
Now, Brig and John are corporate officers too. They're aiming to make about 400,000 moves in 2011.
About $211 million in sales.
Not bad for a hobby that started with 4 or 5 moves a week. The family pickup, these 2 guys and their mom.
I loved running a little business. It was better than any toy or any hobby that you could have.
It's no wonder Mary Ellen noticed people wanted help with short-distance local moves. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 37.5 million Americans moved in 2010, and more than 69% of them stayed within county lines.